Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now in a prior video we took a look at this Atayal XL from Work Tuff Gear in a first look, first impression, and unboxing video. But today we're gonna take a deeper dive. This here a nice size, slicey slab of SK85, capable of tons of good quality field work, and exactly what we're gonna do today. So what we'll do, we'll go through this in detail. I'm gonna compare this against a few other knives, show you some just general comparisons, things to consider. Then we'll get outside for field use, and then I'll come back to the studio and I'll give you my final thoughts. So with that said, I have a whole bunch to do and a whole bunch to share with you. And if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about what I'm about to get into, do me a favor, stay tuned. Now before we get too far, I would like to say thank you very much to the people at Work Tuff Gear who did provide this for review. And so the first thing to consider, the Atayal XL is in the Atayal family. So in other words, there are other knives from Work Tuff Gear that preceded this particular model. The first one that comes to my mind, the Atayal. The Atayal was the first knife from Work Tuff Gear that I was able to review. A Vic Lin design, all of these are just fantastic blade, melts away in your hands, and just an awesome sweeping blade. Has that little bit of a trailing point design, nice full flat grind all the way down into a very sharp and refined edge, capable of tons of good quality work. And then the Atayal, which is again just very similar yet a larger version when you actually compare the two of these, a little bit larger. Beyond all of these, they did come out with the Atayal Mini, so a very small and shortened version of this knife, and at this point, the XL. So if you take a look, for example, the Atayal XL versus the standard size, pretty significant difference, and especially when you compare it against the Atayal, very significant difference. However, what I am going to say is a couple of things. First off, extremely well balanced in the hands. That's something that I'm going to be looking for in a knife of this size, and I love when knives of this size are really balanced around that finger choil. As you take a look here, a nice pronounced finger choil, but very well balanced right at that point, which does a couple of things. First off, when you're back on the handle, well, you can notice it does then make it blade weighted for chopping and, limbing tasks like that. But then when you get up for that tighter and close-up work, you really do get a lot of excellent control, keeps this nice and nimble in the hands, and really minimizes the amount of fatigue. You don't end up with a blade-weighted knife, and you don't end up with a handle-weighted knife. It's nice and neutral, so while you're working, it really does minimize fatigue. So to me, having that exact perfect balance point right on that finger choil is just awesome. And so just for a couple of data points, I'm going to put the original Atayal down on the scale, 14.2 ounces, whereas we get the Atayal XL, here you can see 1 pound, 10.3 ounces. Well, another knife that I do want to sort of introduce here is another knife in what I'm going to call the XL lineup for Work Tuff Gear. The Puzon Predator Hunter, which if you look at both of these, they do tend to fall in that XL class. Tip to the rear end of the handle there, you can see just about the same in overall length. But again, we're going to do the quick comparison here. So as we break this out, 1 pound, 10.3 ounces versus 2 pounds, 1 ounce. So a significantly larger blade, and this is where, if you watched my prior video, I kept saying that the Atayal XL was beefy, but it's not. You get a lot more beefiness out of something like the Puzon Predator Hunter, which is going to be more in that chopping class. I would say the Atayal XL more of a slicer. Now as we take a look at the handle is vastly different from the original Atayal. You can see it's a fully reworked handle, much larger, much wider, much longer, and I would say it has some general characteristics, but it's pretty much a fully redesigned handle in many ways. As we get on to this, you can see it really does allow me to get a full grip close up. all the way back for more chopping or slicing tasks if I'm doing things like clearing of brush or even some limbing and things like that. You know, you're not always necessarily going to be doing heavy chopping, but you do need the ability to index well. That flares out nicely towards the back. You can see a big full palm swell. And as we take a look, you can see a real nice job with the liners. So you end up with an orange and almost like a creamish, whitish, or almost gray liner that gets that differentiation and pop off of the handle slabs, which in this case are that OD green. Now I'm going to mention one thing that I think is going to be, in my opinion and for my hands, not quite ideal. And I typically do like knives with a finger choil where this area right here tapers in versus flares out. And you can see on the original Atayal, it actually kind of tapers in, flares out a touch, but not too much. When that tapers in, it really does buy you clearance to get on the knife and hold it for long-term use without hot spots or without fatigue. And what I do think is what I'm going to find on the XL, that flares out quite a bit, which means it's putting that point right there, right into that grip. And you can see that's going to bear literally right here on my hands. So as I grip this, that's really square and blocky. And again, that is going to bear right there. And as I close my grip, that point is going to bear right there. So after prolonged use, will this fatigue my hands? Will it create any hot spots? Well, there's only one way to figure that out, and that's to use the knife. So let's get out there for some field work. And so, all right, guys, there you have it, a look at the Work Tuff Gear Atayal XL. Now, I think it goes without saying, the Atayal XL, an absolute performer. In fact, all the Atayal line definitely perform, and in fact, all Work Tuff Gear knives perform. But there's something about the Atayal lineup that's just so sweet. And it's that sliciness, just that long sweeping belly, the ability to just carve so effortlessly, beautiful refined edge, balance in the hand, and for the most part, comfort while performing the work. Now, I did have a couple of issues. First is, I didn't really find that the flare on the handles really did impede my ability to do the work, and that's because typically I would like to grip in a full hammer grip, but you saw when I did that, I was so close to getting bit. That curve just kicks back just enough towards the meat of my knuckle that if I'm not careful with that hammer grip, it fills out completely and pushes that corner right into my finger, which is a little bit sketchy. But when I grab and put the thumb over the top, it kind of solves that. And what that does is completely eliminates the meat of my hand touching the point of the handle. So it did kind of work out overall. I do sometimes carve like this. I do sometimes carve like this. It just depends. I use both grips for different purposes. But with this knife, I do find I have to put my thumb intentionally over the top. So I think one of my sort of feedback points is just kissing this edge just enough over to avoid the potential in a full hammer grip to get bit. That's the first thing. But other than that, just really sweet. I mean, this did everything very, very well. All the way from carving, batoning, even chopping. Now, that wood wasn't the toughest, but it did the job forward weighted, and it indexed extremely well. The ability to do that work. Some of the little cutting of the grass, very easy, balanced, light, nimble, just awesome. And, you know, the finer tasks and getting the little feathers and stuff, no problem. This knife is so well balanced for a large knife. No fatigue, no real problems. I fatigued maybe just a little bit when I was carving, you know, upright and carving out my baton, but again, not a big deal. Performed extremely, extremely well. And just something else worth pointing out, I never really did need to use the jimping. In my opinion, that jimping is more suited when you're grabbing the full handle. And most of the time when I was doing the carving tasks, I was up here, which then lands my thumb over the top. So that right there, to me, is really that spot where you're landing your thumb. And for the most part, this does have a sharpened spine. I would say this could maybe be kissed over just a little bit in front of the jimping, just a little bit, because that's going to be an area where you're not really going to do any scraping, and it would be nice just to round that and soften it out. I know Work Tuff Gear has done that on other models, so that wouldn't be a big deal, and that would actually work out mighty nice. I love the finish. I love this particular stonewash finish because of how worn it looks after you do your work. I love that. I have no problem with a hard use patina. That to me just shows that you're using your blades, you're loving them, and they're out there performing work. The sheath worked out pretty well for the most part. Now what I ended up doing was leveraging these loops, putting them in a couple strategic locations, but in reality, because all of your rivets are along the bottom, while you're wearing this, it does want to spin. So what I opted to do was use the bungee cord and just kind of pinch my shoulder strap inside of it. So while I had it on me, not too big of a deal. It actually held it right where it needed to be on my chest, didn't allow it to fall forward, and to get the knife right inside, no worries. As long as you take your time and are careful, that will go right in there. Another thing I found is the retention, you really need to work to get it to break. And you'll see, I'm pulling that pretty good. So as long as you have this reasonably tight, I actually had no worries carrying this, and it was dangling down, no problem, no fear this was going to fall out while I was working around the yard. And then when I needed the knife, pulling it forward, just pushing right on that ramp. Again, you'll see, right on that ramp, just popping the knife out and sliding it out. As long as you have your hands in a safe location within these rivets, no fear, no worries. perfect. So the Kydex, in my opinion, works very well, even though it's just a little bit awkward, but there's not much you can do when you have a blade of this size and a big, long, sweeping belly. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. So I understand why Work Tuff designed the sheath the way they did. And so I don't care if you go with the Atayal Mini, the standard Atayal, the Work Tuff Atayal, or the Atayal XL. Anywhere you go, you're getting a fantastic, awesome performing slicing blade. But to me, this XL really does it, striking the balance in a number of different tasks extremely, extremely well. So to the people at Work Tuff Gear, very nicely done. Thank you so much for providing this for review. And for the rest of you, if you like this content, do me a favor, take a look at my Outer Limitless 2 channel, which is more on the tactical and firearm side of things. At this point, that channel is growing quickly. I have a ton of videos up there. So if you like what you see here on Outer Limitless, do me a favor and check me out on Outer Limitless 2. So all right, guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.